по повод денешниот настан, односно или изложбата која што се организираше по повод 60-годишнината од подпишувањето на Римските договори. Чест ми е да представам денешните панелисти. Маја Трајковска, магистар по европски студии, Лондонска школа за економија и политички науки, неговата екселенција, амбасадорот Самуел Богаш и професор доктор Горан Илич.
So I'll start this debate in English because the agreement is that we will have the debate in English. I hope you all understand English, and I hope that speaking in English will not be an obstacle for this debate. With regards to your questions, which are the most important part of this debate, you can ask them in Macedonian. We have a lovely interpreter here who can interpret them. So I hope that you will all take part in the debate. I'll start briefly. So I'm the moderator. I will say that I'm very pleased to be in the company of Ambassador Bogar and Professor Ilic, of course. But most of all, I'm very pleased to be in the company of students who are studying law, who are studying politics, because this is absolutely the most important part. You are the ones who are going to face the challenges in future. And I think, when I think of my studying days, I was a student when Macedonia became independent, and I never knew that I would have such a responsibility towards that process. So, without longer delay, I would like to announce the short video that we are going to see at the beginning of the debate.
The European Union is not about slogans. It's not about procedures. It is not about regulations. Our union is a guarantee that freedom, dignity, democracy, and independence are no longer only our dreams, but our everyday reality. I lived behind the Iron Curtain for more than half of my life, where it was forbidden to even dream about those values. And that is why today I have the right to loudly repeat the simple truth, that nothing in our life is granted forever. Why should we lose our trust in the purpose of unity today? Is it only because it has become our reality? Or because we have become bored or tired of it? Europe as a political entity will either be united or will not be at all. Only a united Europe can be a sovereign Europe. Human rights and civil liberties, freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, checks and balances, and the rule of law. This is the true foundation of our unity.
There is a debate going on in Europe, what kind of Europe we want in the future. There are 5 models that were presented to the member states, and now the whole debate, also with the citizens in all member states, is being arranged to get the feeling what kind of Europe people want to see in the future. Because we are living in really somehow challenging time, but very crucial times. EU was confronted with quite a lot of challenges from migration to, first with the financial crisis, then it came with the migration crisis, then we came to Brexit, we came to, there is increase of anti-EU forces or parties that are emerged and are increasing their, or at one point were increasing their strength in Europe. So these were all somehow was challenging the EU as it was conceived for the past 60 years. On the other hand, we see this huge demand for the European Union in international relations. High Representative, when she comes back from her travel, she says, I see more excitement with the EU outside the borders of EU than I see inside. Especially after the Trump election in the US, it seems that more and more countries or regions are turning to the EU as the only beacon of the only beacon that is supporting international law, the human rights, freedoms, and so on. So it seems more and more countries are coming to European Union to try to form a coalition or a partnership on the climate change, on all these challenges that are in front of the international community. So on one side you have this troubles within the EU or challenges within the EU. On the other hand, you have this demand for stronger EU. And as President Tusk said, only united Europe can be stronger Europe. Each one of us doesn't represent anything in international relations. Out of 28 still member states, only 4 of them are in the top 10 economies. And I was told that Italy is dropping out of the top 4, that in the next 10 years, all 4 will drop out of the top 10 economies of the world. So only united we can represent something. We are something. That's what President Tusk was saying. So that's how now the debate started in Europe. You know, what kind of Europe citizens want? Do they want more closed Europe? Do they want more Europe where states will get a little sovereignty back, and the Europe will be just an economic trade union? Do they want stronger Europe, where more sovereignty will be put toward the central institutions? I think this is the discussion that is now ongoing. And as you just said, Maya, this is the Europe that you are going to live in. So I know it's very difficult at the moment to reflect on the Europe that you want to see, because you are not even negotiating yet, and there are a lot of trouble just starting negotiations. But I think we have to start discussing also here these issues. And I'm really happy that today we are starting actually these discussions. You know, what kind of Europe you would like to see develop? Which way is going to should it move? I said it's live organism. So which way should it turn? I think this will be interesting for sure for us today or in the next months to try to develop these discussions and get the views also from here. The second question that is interesting for us, for me, is what are you bringing to Europe? It's very bluntly said, but we have, you know very well, there is quite different attitude of citizens in Europe toward enlargement than it was when my country Slovenia joined so many years ago. At that time it was excitement, the end of the Iron Wall and so on. Well, now it's a lot of skepticism because of migration, because of economic troubles, because of perception that Easterns are stealing jobs and so on. So the citizens indeed are not exciting about future enlargement.
Professor Ilic, you're the person who works with these people, and I've just seen what you have published. So would you like to say a few words as introduction, just to throw ideas for discussion?
First of all, I want to thank for the European Commission that Your Excellency is now here in our city, in Bitola, in front generally of our students from the law faculty within our university in Bitola. When you started to talk about the European Union, you initiate many questions about the current status and perspectives of the European Union. And moreover, as we see the program of today's debate, we can say that the future for the European Union is uncertain, of course, considering Brexit issue. Now we have Catalonia as example, and financial crisis, and etc., etc. But also we have an institutional crisis as well, and democracy crisis in European Union as a whole. But this issue cannot be ended here, because there are many different scenarios for its future. Also, because I'm very familiar with the European idea and European movements during the history, and now for European unification, I bought here some books, interesting books, about the founding fathers of the European Union, or founding fathers about the idea of united Europe. I was research a long time the activity and also the articles of Altiero Spinelli and that Italian school of European unification and European federalism. And also I can say that Europe is now on something on crossroads regarding the sentence Europe is economic giant, political dwarf and military worm. So what kind of future Europe will have and what will or what should be done for the future. Also now we have different theses for improvement or advancement of the European integration. One is held by Yanis Varoufakis, for example, and his movement for democracy in Europe. You have the stance of Spinelli Group within the European Parliament, represented by Guy Verhofstadt also, and MEP Andrew Duff also. They are hardcore Euro federalists. You have also some little group. They are also federalist with Demo-Christian affiliation. We originated from the Nicolaus Coudenhove-Kalergi Pan-Europa movement. Also, so you have different visions for united Europe. Also, you have this maybe the most oldest federalist movements here in Europe. This is a book towards a federal Europe, nations or states, written by Jan Fouere, the father of former EU ambassador in Macedonia, Mr. Ervan Fouere, and he wrote about the region states, not the nation states in Europe, which is interesting reading about some alternative aspect, alternative dimension of European affairs and some path for future European integration process. So, regarding the question, United Europe of Nations or United States of Europe, also we can talk about different approaches here and different goals which we want to acquire or to achieve at the end. If we want to build United States of Europe, then we need to bring an European constitution also. If you want to create a European federation, something similar to the United States of America. Also, when I mentioned United States of Europe, I want to stress here the one of the speeches of Guy Verhofstadt in European Parliament, and also in his book about the future of Europe, Now or Never, when he talked about reanimation and of the old Brentano constitution, which was drafted in early 50s of the previous century. And the Brentano constitution for the federalists, for the European federalists, should be a basis for a new treaty of the European Union, treaty which will constitute finally the European Federation, according to them. If we take into account the stances of Varoufakis' movement, he's also some kind of Euro-federalist, And also here we can take the status of former President of European Commission, Romano Prodi, when he talked, and also Varoufakis as well, when he talked about the powerful European Commission, powerful European Parliament with right to initiate laws within the European Union, because we know that today the member of European Parliament does not have a right to initiate the laws in the European Union, but the only right to initiate the laws is European Commission, or a minimum of 1 million citizens of European Union. So we need to, they said that European Union need to give again the power of European Commission, but an European Parliament, because only in the European Parliament we have directly elected members and representatives of European Union citizens. Why Prodi said that Commission will need to regain its power again? Because today the most powerful institutions, and concluded also by Prodi, by Varoufakis, but also and by other by researchers and analysts of the European Union, is the European Council, which is the most powerful body today in European Union, and we know that the European Council is not directly elected, because this body is consisted of members member states of the European Union. They are presidents or prime ministers of the member states of the Union. So, in this sense, the European Council inhibited the future development of the European Union in some more unified way, because in this body is represented the national will, not the European will, or in this body are defended the national interests of the member states and not the European Union interests. So if you want to promote, to affirm and to achieve the European Union interest, then we need to make powerful institutions, not strong men or powerful men, but powerful institutions. Because when some journalists ask Varoufakis, do you want European Union to be ruled by some strong men like Putin or Erdogan? No, no, he said. I'm allergic on strongmen. I want powerful institutions and democratic elected institutions. So maybe the future activities regarding of writing and establishing some treaty for European Union needs firstly to take into account the fact that European Council cannot be the most powerful institution, but the most powerful institution need to be European Parliament, maybe unicameral or bicameral. That is the question of the future, of course.
The idea is now to open the floor to you. It would be nice if you introduce yourselves and not just ask a question, because we will not be answering your question. We really would like to hear your opinions about what we've seen, what we've heard so far, your ideas, your expectations. Yeah, please. Touched on certain points. It's very interesting for me, this perspective about the visa issue, because that's always an issue. So it would be good to hear if this is a predominating view in this audience, whether you think this is some sort of obstacle, because we have the topic of the nation state versus European Union of Nations. We have the other topic of the European unity, the European Union unity. That means within the European Union, within its members. Thus, we mentioned Catalonia, Brexit, we can talk about Scotland, Lombardy, and so on. Which of these issues are the ones that, when you think about the European Union, are the issues that you think about, research, discuss amongst yourselves? Is the dominant question our access to the European Union, whether that happens in 2019, 2020, or 2025? Or is what is happening in Europe, is it a critical view on what's happening in Europe today? Or is it just when are we going to become members? This is, for me, very interesting aspect, because you've touched on both, and obviously we're not, we're discussing things. So, yeah, does anyone have a comment? Or I'm a little bit blinded, so I can't see raising hands. Or can I really not see raising hands? Does anyone have a view on this? How do you feel about the European Union? Yep, please.
Why do you think that United Kingdom wants to get out of the European Union? And about Brexit, will maybe Brexit cause a domino effect among the other countries member in the European Union?
I'm really interested to hear your views on those questions, but I can tell you my views on Brexit very simply. And since I think it's not a public event, so I can share. Every September we have a meeting of ambassadors of the EU in Brussels. We had it last year and we had it this year. Last year it was very gloomy atmosphere. Brexit just happened. Trump just happened. Well, not just happened, but yes, was about to happen, I guess. Happened. And there was concern. You saw these anti-EU movements coming up in the Netherlands, which was the first one to have elections. There was concerns what will happen in France with Le Pen. What will happen, well, in Germany, not so much concern, but there is also anti-EU movement there. So it's a lot of really gloomy atmosphere in Brussels. Where is the EU actually going, and what will actually happen in a 1 year time after these elections happen? This year around, it was completely different atmosphere, because we meet all the leaders, everybody comes to speak to us, from really everybody from top to bottom. Completely different atmosphere. On Brexit, our line is, this is not our problem, it's the UK problem. We are sorry that UK decided what they decided, but they decided. And EU moves on. And in March this year, as we mentioned, I think several of us earlier, there was this declaration signed in Rome, recommitting to a future of Europe. And that really boosted the confidence and atmosphere in Europe. Of course, the elections in France and Germany were the key deciding factor. But so that was one element. On Brexit, this is not for EU an issue. We'll have to make an agreement with UK, fine. We have red lines, we will stick to them. And it's up to the UK to adjust. And we are moving on. So it's not really a concern for the EU how we will live afterwards. We don't see other attempts coming up from other countries. I think many countries, everybody, and many in the UK see that this is a self-inflicting wound. That it's not going to make UK great again. But okay, this is, I'm not speaking for that. I think for the mood, I think among people in the EU is that we don't see that others would follow that suit. That's why also EU is very firm on negotiations with the UK. So that's on Brexit. So there's no concern there. What keeps EU together and what keeps it apart? I think in the discussions that we will be having in the future, there will need to be a balance then between the communal areas, you know what Professor was talking, you know, more central powers, more powers to European Parliament, less power to the Council, but at the same time to keep member states on board, because still, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure as a small country, like my country, which is a small country, I don't think we just want to disappear completely in the EU, you want to have a say. You cannot have a say with 7 MPs in 500 members European Parliament. You cannot have a say with 1 commissioner in 28 body commissioners, but you have a say as member of European Council. And I think some smaller states would like to keep that power a little bit. So yes, probably the balance will need to be done, but I don't think European Council is just going away. I don't see really federal Europe as such. We see also in the eastern part, in Visegrad countries, that actually they are very much against any more of EU taking over, especially after the migration issue. What keeps us together is, well, first the whole principles of the EU, on what the EU is based, and that's why all the candidate countries and people want to join EU, because this is an area where human rights are respected, democracy is respected, where there is a rule of law functioning, and as a consequence of that, there's also a kind of a good standard of living and prosperity linked to the economic development and so on. I think this is something that is uniting all countries, the basis for the European Union. What is uniting us, that united we are stronger, as President Tusk was saying. We don't count anything, each of us, not even Germany, but together we are much stronger, with 500 million people, with I don't know, as I was told, the economy with the biggest growth is, so we count as such. That keeps us together, because as such you are stronger and you count more international relations. What tears us apart? Well, I don't know what tears us apart. Different nationalisms, I guess, different anti-European movements, or the fact that there are certain issues that countries want to deal on their own. Migration issue is one of those issues that tears us apart, because there are very different views in Visegrad countries than they are in other countries as regarding the solidarity of sharing of refugees. I don't think there are so many issues that tears us apart. European Union is now also building defense capabilities. So it's really, I think we're not even at the crossroad yet. I think we already decided that we want to move forward, because really this year we developed a lot on the defense capabilities. So which was the one that was missing. Yes, that was the issue about Catalonia and this dilemma. Yes, are we going to crumble, or I think there are two different issues. I think EU as such is moving forward. I think there's already a decision of all member states that somehow we move forward. We will develop more, will be stronger international relations, stronger on defense, and will become more self-confident player internationally. What happens within the countries is for the countries themselves, and should not, in principle, affect the way how the EU is moving, as long as the things that happen within the countries follow all the EU principles that we preach in other countries, meaning, as Tusk said yesterday also, that Spain should use the power of argument and not the argument of power when settling Catalonia issue. If these internal issues are handled according to the general principles of democracy, human rights, freedom of expression, and so on, then that shouldn't affect the way how EU will be evolving. The problem would come if that would not be the case, but we will. I don't want to talk about that scenario.
Can the Union ever achieve the degree of integrity that the US have?
I don't think so, because you have different nations. You don't have different nations in the US. US was formed differently. Yes, you have states, but here you have nation states. I don't see that. You'll keep to have nations. You would want to have. Everybody want to have their own language. I don't think they would want to switch to English or French. You would want to be a nation with your culture, and I don't know. I'm talking from my national point of view now, because we don't have the line on that. This is part of the discussions now in Europe. I think Europe, yes, should move forward in integration, and it will move forward. You know, it keeps moving now for the past years, and I said already on defense and probably the other issues. There can be more of other issues. I think that Juncker, in his State of the Union address, presented several ideas where else EU could move forward. But never. I don't see United States of Europe.
Okay, I think that the answer is unity in diversity is the best answer, because Europe needs to preserve its diversity regarding languages, nations, cultures, etc., etc. And that is the biggest capital of the European Union, the differences. Regarding the language of the European Union, there is some anecdote, some question, which is the official language of the European Union? English, French, etc. No, the official language of the European Union is translation. So it's okay. Considering the federal future, we need to say that, and in this aspect also have various stances, and in type of federalism, what type of federalism, etc. I think that Europe will never be built like United States of America, because its genesis is quite different. The United States of America is founded by the colonies, but in Europe we have nation states, as Ambassador said, yes, and that is very important thing to know. But also I want to stress that European Union should not go in the path for creation of a super state. We need to have our red lines here. We do not want to see European Union as a super state, because as some of the federalists said, the nation states are already super states. So we do not want to create one another super state which will surpass the other nations, the other cultures, the other societies. But we need to create some democratic institutional mechanism in order to manage those differences in the best way, regarding also and based on the European Union values, which also are civilizational values. Yes, the rule of law, the state of law, democracy, human rights, freedoms, etc., etc. So I think that the unification of Europe in the future will need to be based mostly on its founding values, not on the questions such as statehood, the European state, or something else, some other experiment, nor the creation of some, I don't know, Frankenstein European nation, unique European monolith nation, no. But only the democratization of its institutions, their advancement and development. For example, we can reform the European Parliament. This body can be transformed in bicameral parliament. So in order to be represented and the citizens of the Union, but also in the member states of the European Union, and to make some fusion of the Council of the Ministers and the European Parliament, maybe in that way. But here we open some other also issues. The which kind what kind of Europe in the future. Yes, I'm for more Europe than less Europe, but what kind? We have here multi-speed Europe, double-speed Europe, or other speed for Europe. And also we have here and the concept of avant-garde Europe of Joschka Fischer, he said, and core Europe, as Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, Jacques Delors, etc., etc. So we can discuss also about the European future and in this sense also.
This could scare a lot of people in Europe, and it can trigger a lot of anti-European movements. So why I think it's better to talk about moving forward and establishing, adjusting for what is needed. And we know, as you mentioned, some ideas about European Parliament. Juncker also proposed in his address that the role of the President of the Commission and the role of the President of the Council would merge. So that would be, that's something already going that way. And it's going to be discussed with member states. It's going to be probably a very difficult discussion. But I think it's better to go one step at a time to see what is needed, adjustments so that the EU would function better, than talk about some illusion in a way, which could have very negative effect because of there are anti-European movements in many member states, and such ideas can just then can give oil to, how is it, oil to fire or something?
Yes, put oil on fire, yeah.
Yes, for those movements, just like you see where this is going, and people can easily get scared, Nothing can move people more than fear.
Yes, you have a question over there. I'd just like to focus you. You will be able to ask your question or preferably give a comment. I just want, as a roundup of this part of the discussion about national identity, unity of Europe, it's very interesting to hear your opinion, whether you think those two are in conflict. Because, like Ambassador Spugar said, we don't need to create United States of Europe. If they are created in 100 or 150 years, that will be for other generations, a different challenge. For me, it's interesting, these processes that we mentioned, Lombardia, Brexit, Catalonia, these are not mutually exclusive. They are happening at the same time. So the question is whether the European Union can absorb them, because they are part of this crisis that it's facing at the moment, and whether they're conflicting, whether perhaps this organization has the capacity to absorb the demand for more national identity within its framework. What do you think about that?
So mine is not a question. I mean, I get your point. You're trying to solicit feedback from these people here, and they keep asking you questions. So I want to give you some feedback. So that's the primary reason why I came here today. First of all, I'm not a EU skeptic. I'm a believer in the European Union as it is on paper, not the European Union that we have right now. So I'm very excited about having the opportunity to kind of explain what is the discrepancy between the two kind of concepts in my head. I think the speeches of Donald Tusk and also the core values that you espouse when you speak about the European Union are admirable goals, something that every decent human should aspire to, and it's really hard to kind of reconcile that with the behavior of the European Union, not just among its member states, but also to candidate countries like Macedonia. For example, specifically for Macedonia, it's unity, respect for human rights, freedom of expression. That's all great. Why don't we have that in Macedonia? In Macedonia, we have a very specific example of a denial of a very basic human freedom, which is the right to self-determination. European Union also the European Union states that it is for the rule of law, yet all the problems that we've had in Macedonia have been solved by circumventing the rule of law in some way, whether it was with the creation of a very special prosecution office, or whether we have we call them in Macedonia the chiefs of the parties, like the Indian chiefs of parties. They got taken into a room and they're told, this is what you're going to do. I mean, the reason there is skepticism in Macedonia towards the EU is because we see things like this, and we feel that we are being judged, and we are being kind of made to do things that the European Union on paper frowns upon, but in reality it is actually forcing us to do kind of like this strange initiation ritual if we are even going to be considered for membership, I don't know, in 10, 20 years, however much it takes. Specifically, just to give more examples, Macedonia is one of the few countries in Europe that has a lot of rights given to their ethnic minorities. I would cite the Albanian ethnic minority as an example, which enjoys possibly the biggest set of minority rights, and we are it's frowned upon for Macedonia to request the same respect for minority rights for our minorities in Albania, Greece, and in Bulgaria. In fact, under the sponsorship of the European Union, we have been kind of strong-armed into signing the declaration for a good neighborly relationship with Bulgaria, which basically amounts to Bulgaria kind of problematizing the very concept of a Macedonian identity. And so the reason why the European Union is such a kind of take it or leave it proposition in Macedonia is because of these kind of conflicting things. The ambassador says one thing, but then different things happen, in reality. So in general, I don't want to take up too much time. I just want to ask, as a representative of the European Union, why doesn't the European Union espouse in reality the values that it basically has on paper? Why would the European Union allow such a basic human right like a human identity to be even something that needs to be discussed as a part of a country's ascension to the European Union?
Тоа што встусно се случува со нашата земја, Европската унија од една страна, значи зборува за вредностите кои што се взаемни за сите земји членки на Европската унија, како што се човековите права, како што се демократијата, како што се ред други вредности кои што се карактеристични за Европската унија. Да, меѓутоа тие вредности на кои што се повикува толку многу на Европската унија, кои што се ставени на папир и на хартија, во реалност тие, значи, вредности не се аплицираат соодветно за земјите аспиранти за членство во Европската унија, во овој случај за Република Македонија. И, значи, Европската унија понекогаш иницира некои процеси кои што се спротивно на тоа кој што ги пишува во хартија, и понекогаш има и заобиколување на владењето на правото, значи не соодействува.
Во Македонија имаме цело време заобиколување на владењето на правото со правењето на посебно обвинителство, со донесување одлуки само на лидерите на партиите, затворени во 4 зида. Значи тоа како поглавари на индиски племиња, точно така рекол. Мислам, тоа не е демократски процес во никоја земја во Европската унија.
И толкму, значи, само да сумирам на крај, зошто Европската унија, или всушност дали идентитетот на една нација е како главен, дали воопшто таа тема треба да се дискутира, и дали воопшто таа тема, тоест националниот идентитет, треба да биде како услов за започнување на преговори со Европската унија.
Ова е сублимат. Колку од вас го сметаат ова за проблем, за горлив проблем во моментот? Еден? Ако може малку повисоко? Океј. Повисоко за, shall we say about 50%? Or shall we count? Okay, there is enough people who have a strong feeling about this. So, there you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry about it. I'm sorry that our
help with the political crisis that started without us is seen as our interference in the relations here at home. I don't think we imposed ourselves on trying to help find a way out of political crisis a few years ago that started, just to recall, with wiretaps being released and the realization that 20,000 people in this country were wiretapped. So that's how the crisis started, and that led to the position which was already out of the parliament, having demonstrations, and it was mass in the country. At that time, I think we were encouraged or asked by all political leaders to try to help to mediate, because there was nobody in the country who could bring the leaders at the table and try to find a way out of the situation. I think that's how we got engaged in Pregino talks. I don't know which part of rule of law was violated. A special prosecutor was established because the public prosecutor was not functioning. I think we'll have to wait for the Constitutional Court to give us opinion whether the law on SPO is constitutional or not. Otherwise, we can have just our own opinion. So, the law was approved in the Parliament with 2/3 majority, and as such, it is a valid law, and the SPO was established. If this is not constitutional, you have institutions who can decide about that. Nobody else but Constitutional Court. Why it was established? Because public prosecutor obviously was not in the shape to deal with this issue, since half of the political establishment didn't believe in the independence of the public prosecutor. In ideal world, yes, it should be the public prosecutor who should have dealt with these issues long time ago. So that's how we got involved in Pregino. We were not sponsoring any agreement with Bulgaria. We supported the agreement with Bulgaria.
That's what I said, sorry. That's what I meant.
Okay. This was bilateral agreement. All we encourage is the country and countries, all countries, to solve, to have good neighborly relations with their neighbors. And that's what we are saying here as well. And when the agreement was signed, we were supporting it, very happy that one of the obstacles for the country in Europe was removed. So I don't see where we are coming as violating the rule of law. You know, the name issue was a problem in 2009, maybe 10, and not anymore after that. I was there in 2009 when in the Council we were discussing recommendations which came from European Commission to start negotiations. And at that time almost all countries were speaking in favor of starting negotiations. And yes, at that time there was Greece who had issue and asked for more time so that possibly the name issue would be resolved. But every half a year the member states would come back to the issue. And with each half a year, there was less and less countries speaking, because different processes started in the country, processes that had nothing to do with enlargement, which went really the opposite way, which is reflected in every report that we were issuing since then. And it really less and less countries spoke. We were more and more harsh in our comments in the reports, until last year we said it's captured state, which we didn't say for any other country. In our reports. And so the name issue was not really up there up front, was not the main reason. The main reason.
So the EU is not going to support any kind of basically request for Macedonia to change its name to be accepted in the EU?
No, just for the past years, this issue was not an issue. The Commission each year issued a recommendation to open negotiations. As the EU functions, its member states who have a say on that will come back to the European Council. as you were saying. And in European Council, every country has to be in favor. So this is an issue that will need to be addressed. How it's solved, I'm optimistic how the government started solving the issue with building the atmosphere of trust, which is not there between the two countries. With several meetings, discussions, and I think it is building a trust. Now, how it will continue, I don't know. It's up to them. I think both countries are interested to move forward. There is this excitement now in Brussels that we have to move forward. So there is a pressure building in the air on all sides. And let's see where this brings us next year. But this is now really, everybody in Brussels believes it's a time to move forward, and must not, this window must not be lost next year, so that we start negotiations.
Can I just say that the impression of some citizens of Macedonia is that excitement comes from the fact that Macedonia has shown a willingness to actually change their name, which is this is the impression. This is my impression. This is not a question.
The name yet. Excitement is coming from the fact that we have a government who, for time being, is saying, let's see if they will do. For time being, is saying all the right things. They are committing to the right reforms. They're asking us for things that they need to do in justice, in public administration, in media, and so on. And so far, they seem to be following advice on these reforms. I'm not talking about the name. And of course, next few months will be critical for us to see if this government is really committed to do what is expected to do, so that we see that this shift is really happening and they really are serious about all these reforms. That's where excitement is coming, that we have an interlocutor here now that is seen, we have impression, is serious to do reforms.
I know that the name issue and the relationship between Macedonia and the EU is a burning issue. However, it's not just pro forma that we're holding a debate about the current state of the European Union. You, as future European Union citizens, need to know and discuss where will you live. I'm sure that you feel that perhaps representatives like Ambassador Spugar need to come more frequently, and you have more and more questions for him. But I really, as a moderator, don't want to turn this debate into a debate about the name, because that's not what it was. So going back to our original discussion about where is the European Union heading and how you think it's developing, I seriously would like to suggest that we go back to that. That doesn't mean that we're avoiding the questions about the name. That's not the idea. I'm hoping that there will be other opportunities to discuss that. At the end of the day, if that's what you want to discuss, let's organize a debate about that, but we can discuss that later. So do we have an agreement that we can go back to our third topic, because we're running over time, and that is whether the European Union is prepared to accept its changing face. By that we mean several things. One is accepting new members with a different face, cultural, sometimes religious, and also having more migrants, so from different countries, different backgrounds. When the European Union was formed, or started being formed, it was based on nation states. It was predominantly white, Christian, and so on. Today we have a changing Europe. So the question is whether the European Union itself is prepared to accept all of, even nations like us, who have different communities of different religious background, have different cultural background, and so on. So would anyone like to comment on that? Yes, please.
First, let me introduce myself. I'm Mladen Karadžovski, Associate Professor of the Law Faculty, University of St. Kliment Ohridski from Bitola. Your Excellency, we are really honored having you here today. And as you see, Bitola is really thirsty for this type of debates. So I hope that also this will be a sort of a continuing project, and in future we will have similar debates to this, so we can discuss many, even problematic issues. I want to go back a little bit 25 years ago, so we can, make a connection with the current state, current situation in the European Union. I'd like to mention that EU energy, that it was released after the signing of the Maastricht Treaty, and the period of encircling the internal market and the creating of monetary union, and this was a really big impetus for all the states, not only the West European states, but also for the East European states, which become sort of independent after the fall of the Berlin Wall. But we also have to say that this economic integration was intended to also reflect into the political integration. Unfortunately, with the European Constitution and the referendums in France and Netherlands, this political unification wasn't achieved. After that, we had the Lisbon Treaty, and which is actual today. So I think that what's going on, what's happening in the European Union at the moment is sort of I wouldn't say fight to be rude, but also a bit confrontation between the sovereignists and the internationalists, and it's happening in many states at the moment, member states of the European Union. So I'm wondering myself, and I'm keep asking the question: what should we do to go back regarding the European energy 25 years ago, so we can discuss about European unification, including Western Balkans, because it's integral part of Europe regarding cultural, civilizational, and many other aspects. Because without Western Balkans, European Union wouldn't be like entity. We wouldn't be complete anyway. So how do you think we should, erase that type of energy that was present in Europe, especially in Central and Eastern Europe in the 90s? Thank you.
Before I pass this on to you, just in order to keep time, are there any other questions? Yes, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4. Yes, I would like to suggest now that we collect these questions and then start rounding up, just in order to keep time, because obviously. So who would like to go second? You had a question there, yeah.
Hello, I am Darya Kılıç. I am from Turkey. I am here volunteer EVS in Ctudentska, Macedonia, and I am journalist and same time I am law student. We speak about Catalonia and refugees, so many things. When we look around the world, US have Trump problem, Turkey also have some problem. We changed the constitution, we went to referendum in April, and Middle East, Syria problem, Iraq again. After they start to fight against each other, Kurdish forces, Peshmerga, and Iraq forces, army, and Haçlı Şabi, Iran was there, still is there, and Turkey. When we look Syria, Kurdish problem, and Daesh, after the Daesh start to now their forces against each other. When I look, we are speak about political program, we said, but I think this is not just same time economical. Catalonia problem, when we look, we see not just political and same time economic in Catalonia, because Catalonia think she's rich and she don't want to have Spain. Spain, if I don't remember, 2007-8 have economic crisis. Greece has economic crisis. Italy same. And after another issue, refugee. Refugee not just political problem, same time economic problem. In my opinion, Union couldn't struggle with that, because there is so many economic problem and couldn't struggle with that. On the other hand, law problem. in my opinion, if you think political, economical law from different each other, no, they are together. When we look Turkey, where EU start to make deal about refugee, and yes, last year Italy made deal with Libya refugee problem, and when we see this is, in my opinion, this is chaos for EU, for Middle East, for human rights, and can we after that this problem, law problem, economical, political problem, can we say still EU still strong and power EU unity? As another question, EU need Turkey for customer, for economic. After we know EU and Turkey have so many political problems, but this is not just a political problem. At the same time, this is an economic problem about customer, and I see. Another problem is G7. When I follow G7, G20, one is in June arranged in Italy, another Hamburg. We see security problem too, economic, refugee, terrorism, security. But after that, we didn't solve any problem solved. Terrorism attack continued, refugee problem is there still, and with Turkey, EU problems still continue. What is doing EU for them? Did have plan? Because refugee problem, when we see before 2011 start, after spring, Arab is start to much more. But we didn't see any solved. EU make forward slowly, in my opinion. And now, you have any problem, any plan for future, for economic and political law principle. Another question is, and my opinion, woman problem, woman rights. Yes, we speak about human rights, democracy. When I look European Union, European Commission, I don't see so many women representatives. And you have any plan for women rights? Thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, so who was the third person? There was someone there, you?
Actually, it's not a question, it's a comment. I'm Stefania. I was former law student. Now I'm attorney trainee, and my comment whether I will add a comment about the changes. Is Europe actually ready for changes? И сега ќе продолжам на македонски. Кога станува збор за промените на Европа, би сакала да кажам дека сметам дека за било какви промени, затоа што вие што ги спомнавте, промените беа повеќе од некој надворешно политички аспект за проширување или за проблемот со мигрантите, меѓутоа сметам дека за Европската унија да биде спремна за промени, таа мора да ги реши проблемите внатре во самата себе и да престане да го практикува тој двоен стандард кога станува збор за земјите, затоа што мој лично видување на работите е дека Европската унија има широко отворени очи за проблемите кога станува збор за малите и не толку силни земји, и во нив под плаштот дека имплементира демократија спроведува низа активности што се на некој начин добри и јас ги поддржувам, меѓутоа од друга страна кога станува збор за големите земји, таа замижува и видите кој е тоа проблем на внатрешните работи на државата. Сметам дека таа практика треба да се укине и сметам дека поради тоа токму се овој тој евроскептицизам, затоа што мислам дека во Македонија веќе мислењето е поделено, некои се за Европска унија, за влегување во Европска унија, меѓутоа многу од младите што и жално сметаат дека Европската унија би не довела до пропаст, и затоа сметам дека токму поради таквите стандарди кои ги развива унијата се јавува и таквото мислење. Тоа би бил мојот коментар. Не ви сакала.
Јас сум Милорад Петрески, правник и магистар по меѓународно право и меѓународни односи. Ме интересира дали постои некоја критичка дебата во Европскиот парламент и меѓу интелектуалците во унијата околу формирањето на заедничката европска армија, која што би можела да доведе или не до некоја подлабока интеграција во Европа во насока на одбрана на нејзините надворешни граници, па и преземање на некои мисии надвор од територијата на Европската унија, се со цел одржување на меѓународниот мир и безбедност, а тоа да биде во согласност со повелбата на Обединетите нации, како меѓународен светски устав да речам, и она воспоставена мултилатерална соработка меѓу Унијата и Обединетите нации. Благодарам.
We know that the main focus of the European Union is the peace, keeping the peace, but also at the same time we know that the European Union doesn't have an army. So I want to hear what's your opinion about developing it that way. Should European Union have an army or special organized security and safety forces? Thank you.
Јас би посекал да кажем, да поставам две прашања. Првото прашање. Овој разговор треба да го одржуваме после 8 години, бидејќи Европска унија се изјасни дека до 2025 година нема прием ни разговори на држави од Балканот. Така. И второ, Србија Европа, Шпанија Европа, Македонија Европа. Во Србија имаат независно Косово, сега има независна Каталонија. Што ќе се случи во Македонија ако југоисточна Европа која ќе влезе, југоисточна Македонија прогласи независност која ќе влеземе во Европска унија? Сега треба да размислуваме и да ми одговорите.
And that's it. And then you have the one final one. You have another one. Would you mind giving your space to this lady over there who didn't ask a question? Because we're running out of time. So would you be able to... Yeah?
Симона Видановска, правен факултет Битола. Најпрво сакам да го кажам моето мислење околу коментарот на студентката од Турција, која што кажа дека има голем проблем Европската унија со решавање на некои проблеми. Сметам дека Европската унија нема проблем со решавање на некои проблеми, затоа што тие не се само европски проблеми, туку се и глобални проблеми, како што се проблемите со мигрантите. И сметам, бидејќи се работи за илјадници на мигранти и азиланти и слично, се вмеша, да речам, не само бегалците, туку се вмеша и други луѓе, да речам, од некои територии кои што немаат некои економски, политички и воени проблеми, со што ситуацијата е уште повеќе комплицирана, што значи треба многу време за таа ситуација да се разреши. Значи, Европската унија има решение и самите ние држави земји кои што сме затекнати од тие проблеми имаме некои решенија, но треба многу време за тие проблеми да бидат решени. И уште еден коментар, бидејќи амбасадорот кажа дека има време за да размислуваме за она, да речам, Обединета Европа, јас сметам, кога Европа, односно Европската унија, од самите нејзини почетоци, да речам, од заедница за јаглени челик го достигна ова дене што е, да речам, Европска унија со сите овие нејзини карактеристики и Лисабонски договори слично, сметам дека може да имаме Обединета Европа, затоа што промените, да речам, и во самата Европска унија брзо се случуваат и сметам дека може да се достигне и еден ден и тоа да имаме на Обединета Европа.
You provoked me with your question regarding if the union is ready to accept difference. And yes, me personally, I'm interested in the common asylum system that the union has, and it changes in the period of the migration crisis. And I have a question: isn't a bit of breaking of human rights with the safe third country principle? Because I'm okay with the safe country of origin, because it was good to have it, like for asylum seekers from Macedonia, Serbia, or other Balkan countries. But what about the other principle, safe third country? Because if I'm an asylum seeker and if I go to Austria and ask for asylum, you're breaking my human right for choice. Because with the safe country, with the principle safe third country, you as a country have the right to refile me back to Macedonia, and on the principle that I could fulfill the rights as an asylum seeker in Macedonia. So what is your opinion in that? Isn't the union a bit of breaking human rights here and showing how it is still not ready to face with those challenges of migration crisis and migration influx, and especially because those migrants are coming from Muslim countries? Thank you.
Somebody said that we should have this debate in 8 years. because Juncker said that there will be new enlargement in 2025. I actually think that this is good news, what he said. I think for the first time EU announced the date of possible new enlargements, which we haven't had so far. And I would be really happy if we can get as many countries as possible into the EU by 2025, because 2025 means you need to sign the treaty 2023, you need to conclude the negotiations 2022. So actually I have only 4 years from now, 5 years from now to start negotiations and conclude them, which would be really fast. I think the idea about putting the date is actually to show that the EU is ready to accept new members, because there was a feeling that EU is just dragging the process, inventing new steps in between. What used to be before application for membership, negotiations and entry now became conditions for application, and then screening, then candidate, then giving a date, and then actually start negotiations. So more and more steps. So that was the feeling, and that's why when Juncker came with this date, is actually tried to assure candidate countries in the Western Balkans that EU is serious and will accept new members. He also announced that in February of next year we will produce a strategy about enlargement. So this is supposed to be a document like that will show how this enlargement process will go in the next few years. I think very important document where we hope to see some encouraging words for this country as well. So I see this date as from positive point of view, not from skeptical. I don't think countries will be ready before that to entry. I think that on Declaration of Independence, I think that Commission was clear saying that these are internal issues of the countries that needs to be dealt, as it was said for the case of Spain, in line with the Constitution. But through the dialogues, solving all the problems through the dialogue. So I don't see the danger that there will be now declaration of independences everywhere. I think Kosovo was a very special case that came after the attempted genocide in Kosovo, the bombing, and then followed whatever it followed. And still there is an issue that requires a dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia, and there are also 5 member states who are not recognizing that independence. So I don't think that that's a danger, that this Catalonia model would trigger many new examples. Migrants issue, I agree that because several mentioned migration, I think this is a big issue for the European Union, and during the crisis I think also some values of the EU were tested, and of course EU is not, of course sometimes there are double standards. I mean, unfortunately, but it happens. It's not an ideal organization, and also during the migration crisis, there were several values that were tested from several member states. I think it ended all well in the end. It came back together with the help of countries of the Balkans as well, to try to stop the migration flow, with the help of Turkey, with whom the EU signed an agreement, and as I understand, it's holding, the agreement is holding, so there are no new migrants coming to Greece, and from Greece to other countries and to Europe. The whole resettlement of migrants within the EU is not yet functioning, because not all member states agree with the methodology that was done. But this is an issue which I think EU was not prepared with when it was confronted. But through the crisis, I think it evolved the instruments how to deal with the with the crisis also in the future. Some of the issues that are coming out of migration crisis, not necessarily linked, but some are linked, is also the whole security aspect. And we come to the army issue. I don't think we are talking about the army of the European Union, but I think we are talking about building defense capabilities, which is a more softer word of not building a European army, but of building cooperation of EU member states on defense issues. So far it was all left to NATO and was like we don't deal with that. But now it's especially this year, a lot of decisions were done and the headquarters of this defense center was established. So I think we are building these capabilities, and we already have EU missions, civilian and military missions abroad. I don't know how many we have, but we have quite several, including in Africa. Yes, I think that's the way where we are going. That was missing, not to the point of a joint army, but even NATO doesn't have a common a joint army, but how the members can cooperate and in case of need can come together. We don't talk about Article 5 of the Washington Treaty that we would protect each other. I don't think this is there yet, but everything else is. Yeah, energy for Western Balkans, there was also a good question, yes, which is true. Yes, in the 90s there was this, with the fall of the Iron Curtain and everything, there was this energy of bringing these new countries in, which is now missing, is lacking. Also because of experience, there was this huge enlargement with 12 member states, a lot of, some also negative experiences, with that huge enlargement, so how to bring it back? I think one of the lessons learned is that if EU is not paying attention, things can go very wrong in the Balkans. We saw last year between Serbia and Kosovo, well, the whole region I think was in turmoil last year. So now EU is paying more attention. Is promising this strategy to present more clear vision how we see each country coming into the EU. We are going to have a summit of the EU and Western Balkans next year in May, I believe, which is the first one after Thessaloniki summit. So this is meant to bring new energy to this enlargement process and to the region as well. And then in June, we are hoping for some good decisions for several of the countries. So I think the next half a year, hopefully, will bring some more energy into our relationship, and that people also here will feel that it's happening for real. That yes, yes we can, yes we'll do it. And women rights, good observation, yes, that we don't have enough women in the council especially. I think in the parliament we are better, but also in the top positions, I think in all presidents are men, that's true. I'm pretty sure that people especially in parliament are thinking how to address that, and let's hope that it will be better. Some countries are better, some countries are worse. Especially Scandinavian countries are doing very well in promoting women. But I guess it's a process, and we are moving toward that. Recently Norway got a new government with a prime minister, defense minister, and finance minister, and foreign minister are women, and. Carl Bildt, the former Swedish foreign minister, he tweeted, he said, there are men in that government too. So, and usually we are all, Scandinavians were always to the whole Europe like a symbol of progressive movement, somewhere we all want to move to. So I think this is the future. As somebody said, ženska je future. Idnina je ženska. Yeah. So future is women.
It's feminine.
It's feminine. Yes, that's what I want to say. It's feminine.
Gender, the word future
Yes.
is feminine.
Yes. So that means the future is. Yes, that's what I want. Idnina je ženski rod. So that's it will come, but you and we all have to keep pushing for it. I don't know.
Thank you very much. Professor Ilic, if you would like to round up.
Yes, I especially want to give some comments regarding the questions about the military dimension of the European Union. So I don't know, personally I do not want anything which is connected with the military, at least the European Union, because the European Union is based on some civilian norms and values. Because of that, the Union has a civilian nature, as a civilian power. So maybe the European Union elites should be very careful with militarization of the Union. But I agree with the ambassador when he said that maybe the European army will not be some joint military, I don't know, contingent, but that will be something similar to NATO. Maybe European Union will have some coordination center about the whole national armies of its member states, and and the Lisbon Treaty is a good base, legal basis for that kind of activities. Why? Because the permanent structures cooperation as instrument is stipulated in the Lisbon Treaty, and also the Lisbon Treaty provides some legal basis for creation of EU rapid reaction forces and EU battle troops, some kind of European Union, I don't know, not armies, but some army actors or subjects, etc. So also the European Union is very important to be active in the world affairs, in the international relations, and because the Union have many missions in the world, but they are not independent missions, but with NATO and with the United Nations also. So the goals of that mission are civilian, and the European Union operate as a civilian actor in those missions, not as a military actor.
Okay. As a moderator, I have the final word, which is great. And I'll use it to thank you all. I think this is my first time that I'm a moderator at a university in Macedonia. I think you had wonderful questions. Of course, you would be focused on what is of interest to you. There's one thing I disagree with. One of the questions was that we have to talk about this in 8 years' time. I actually think now is the right time to talk about this, to set the standards, to tell Europe what we want from it as well. And also, regarding your comment about Macedonia giving rights to minorities, human rights, etc., we should take pride in that. We shouldn't say, oh, we've done this, why isn't this done? I think setting a good example is a responsibility to ourselves as a country. So, absolutely, why not? I mean, we're talking about Scandinavian countries. Norway is not a member of the EU, but it's setting a very positive example. So, yeah, I know it may sound funny to aspire to that, but it's up to you to create a future that you want to live in. Life is not fair. We all know that for various reasons. We're born in different countries, different circumstances, etc. But we all have a responsibility to say, what is the best that I can do as a citizen of this country, as a citizen of Europe, of the EU, etc. It's a responsibility, a civil responsibility to do the best. So, I'm hoping that this is going to be one of many future debates. I hope you will invite us again. Thank you very much for your hospitality. And yeah, that's how I would round up this discussion. Thank you very much.